It's Fill Your Plate Now, where every bite brings you closer to the farm gate and further from what's unhealthy. Now here's your hosts, Julie and Tammy, helping you live well by filling your plate well.
So, Tammy, we have somebody pretty special in the house. Someone that we've both known for quite some time. Our families go way back. But we decided for this episode that we would kind of focus on, it's springtime, the bees are buzzing, the flowers are blooming, and sometimes we just need some straightforward, basic nutritional insights. And what better person to do that than a longtime friend of ours, Glenna McCullum. And so I'm very excited about this episode.
Oh, likewise. And not only a longtime friend, but the past president of the National Nutrition Association, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics.
Yes, and that's what I'm
kind of... registered dietitian.
Yes, and I'm kind of going to give a little bit of an intro on you because I don't want us to miss any of this. So you're an Arizona native, like the three of us, and you're a registered dietitian, nutritionist. And I like to say, Dr. McCullum, you served as president and speaker of the House of Delegates for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, correct?
That's correct.
And that wasn't actually that long ago.
No, 10 years ago.
10 years ago. So this was on the national level. And in fact, for our audience, our listeners, this is the largest food and nutrition organization serving over 120,000 credentialed practitioners nationwide. So we're tapping into a very important network. And for the last 17 years, you were the director of nutrition for Central Arizona College. So that was pretty cool, and served your community of Chandler as the executive director for the Chandler Education Foundation. You're all about education, and that's proof of the pudding. You got your doctorate in management and organizational leadership from the University of Phoenix and a master's in public health from Loma Linda University. So all of those things combined is one of the reasons that right now, Dr. McCullum, you're currently serving as the board chair for the Arizona Center for Rural Leadership, or what we kind of like to say, Project Central, because it's a rural leadership training program. Again, merging all of those things with your education, your past history. And you were actually a class member. Class 9, I believe it was.
That's correct, I was.
Yes, so welcome.
Thank you.
Tammy and I feel very privileged to have you as part of this because you bring so much to the table, especially when it's about nutrition and just some side conversation I've had with you in the past, and some of the tips you've given me, I've thought, so straightforward, so basic. And in fact, that's kind of one of the first questions I want to ask you. What's a simple way to balance micronutrients like your proteins, your carbs, your fats in your everyday life? Again, it's springtime. Life is renewed. How do we do this basic and straightforward with our nutrition?
Thank you, Julie. And let me just say both to you and Tammy, it's an honor to be invited and to be here today to talk about a very important topic near and dear to my heart. But yeah, as you're talking about spring and looking around, everybody notices that it's colorful, flowers are in bloom, we have lots of fruits and vegetables that are starting to pop out with their blossoms and the like. And so let me just say that one of the easiest things, because we can get into a lot of data, I could talk percentages, you should do this or that, but in reality, what I've grown to understand is the public wants to make it easy to understand and easy to follow. And so I give this very simple guideline, and that is, if you could take a minute before you eat and look at your plate or your bowl or whatever it is that you're ordering from the restaurant or even maybe from the fast food chain, is take a minute and just look at the color of your food. It's the same as the color that spring brings. The more color that you have on your food, the more balanced it's going to be, the more nutrient dense will be the products of foods that you consume, like if you have fresh strawberries, or if you can have a salad that has lots of color, extra tomatoes, more cucumbers, carrots, and the like. The more color you see on your plate, the more nutrient dense is going to be your meal. The other little tidbit or hint that I would give is we have a challenge in our American public in that we are very concerned about our weight, but we have a very different concept on portion size. What is it that our bodies really need? So let me just say, everyone carries their hands with them every place they go. So take just a minute and look at your hand. Yeah. And if you'll just spread out your fingers, first and foremost, you have 5 fingers, so that says look for 5 colors on your plate. You may not have it for every meal, but throughout the day, make sure it's colorful. The second thing is that we have very large plates in our homes and in our restaurants. But when you look at your hand, that's about the size of the food that you consume, of course, unless it's a big salad. But the portion sizes have really become distorted, and what we think we need sometimes becomes over portion sized. And as a result, it's more calories than what we need in a day. So look at your hand size, let that be your plate size, or at least when you look at your food, if you get a 16-ounce steak, well, you know, really, that's probably not all that you need to eat. You might be really hungry, but if you'll take some time, and then wonderfully, we have this wonderful palm of our hand, and that's about the amount of a 3-ounce portion size of food. And even though it sounds so simple, this is one thing that every individual can take with them. I don't care if you're a 10-year-old or a preschooler or an adult going to work every single day, you can have the same guidelines given to you right there in the palm of your hand.
And that's the tip that I've always taken away when I've talked to Glenna, is that, you know, use your hand as the key to your portion size. But something now that you've just enlightened me to is that our plate should look like springtime year round, really.
So it's a good time to be talking about this as it's spring right now. Yeah. I know. And, you know, one of the things, too, that I have found in when people are talking about their diet, they start on the right track and then they veer off course kind of with mindless eating and snacking and things. Any tips on how they can get around doing that, or what they can do to counter that so that they can stay on course?
That's a great question, Tammy. And one thing I would say is we have a fast-paced society, and unfortunately, what maybe I grew up with in my home, and my mother was a great cook, and we knew that we were going to come home to dinner at night, but everybody is busy. And so one of the things that I would suggest is take the time, maybe on the weekend when you have a little bit more time, and that is think ahead and plan. Plan a little bit more in advance for your snacks that you might want to enjoy, mainly springtime colors. Have those colorful snacks of fruit, maybe carrots, broccoli, celery, cucumbers, and the like, and get them ahead of time so they're prepared and they're easy to pick up. As much as we might grab a bag of chips, well, we can grab a bag of celery or a bag of carrots. And so with that, I would also say, because we are so busy, sometimes we wait too long to eat. Mm-hmm. So if you think about, okay, we need to have 3 square meals a day, well, is that reality? Well, it could be for some, but it isn't for everyone. And so maybe snacking smaller sizes throughout the day with those colorful foods that I was recommending, and having the snacks prepared ahead of time, because many times if we have to stop and think about it, it's just too much. And so prepare when you have the extra time, maybe increase to 6 smaller meals or 3 meals and small snacks throughout the day, so that it isn't so mindless because we've prepared ahead of time.
Yeah, great point, great point. And when you say colorful, you don't mean jelly beans, right?
And I don't mean colorful M&Ms either. I mean strawberries, cantaloupe, carrots, broccoli, blueberries, all of those wonderful, colorful foods that in the springtime, we think of color, and it's the same for our healthy food choices.
We're very blessed to have a lot of fresh produce.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's good. Well, and really, probably because we are celebrating the rainbow of colors or the springtime colors on your plate, but sometimes we're still concerned, are we getting enough vitamins and minerals? Is there a caveat to that we need to add to this whole consideration?
Well, as I suggested, colorful foods are the more nutrient dense. And
There you
so
go.
if you eat a variety of springtime colors on your plate, then you're going to be much more likely to get those micronutrients that you need, not only for overall health, but think about it today as well as for brain health, because that's a
sure.
lot of what takes place as we're going and processing our thoughts and our work throughout the day. So it's really very important that we have those colorful foods for the micronutrients. But let me also just make a suggestion as well. Is unfortunately, it seems like in this day and time, and it's based on research that came out at New Mexico State University with Dr. Johnson, unfortunately, over about the last 50 years, the nutritional value of many of our crops has gone down 30 to even 50%. And so the question is, well, even if I do that, am I going to have all the nutritional value that my body needs? And it's a good question. By the time we're moving at a fast pace, do we have time to really prepare? Even if I'm eating colorful foods and I may not do it every single day, is that going to be enough? And my suggestion, and I do this for myself as well, is I do take a multivitamin every day. One, as I'm aging, but two, it's just part of a safety net that I would say, because of what we're finding in our crops. They're still great. I mean, America produces tremendous amount of food, but we still have some challenges that's taken place within our soils that impact the crops that are grown and the nutritional values. So eat that variety and eat that colorful plate of food, but for those who maybe have too fast a paced life and aren't being able to focus so much on their diet, take a multivitamin, and that would be for children as well as for adults.
Very good.
Yeah, excellent. And I know we don't always think of it as food, but water, especially in Arizona, water is a very important thing to us, and making sure we get enough water. How much water do you generally tell people they should be drinking, and does it vary with their age or activity level?
Well, Tammy, I know you're a great, you're very committed to exercise and being out in the Arizona desert. I'm sure that you probably will have a different answer than I will, but let me say for the general public, it's important for them to have about 64 or 8 glasses of water a day. However, if you're out in the Arizona heat like we are oftentimes, I think the habit of being able to carry a reusable water container so that you make sure that you have enough even if you get dehydrated. But keep in mind, for someone who might drink coffee in the morning, well, there's water in that coffee, but it also can be dehydrating. So let me suggest this, is that other than water, there are foods that have water in them. They also, various beverages do, but the suggestion is that even if you drink coffee or occasionally a soda, that can be part of your water consumption for the day. However, it is very important that your main beverage of choice is water, just good old plain water. And if you need to add a little flavor just to make it where you want to consume it, there are many things on the market nowadays that can make it even better to drink. But the encouragement is for at least 8 glasses. And as seniors, it becomes even more challenging because oftentimes our choices for foods, our desire to consume food, even to consume beverages, seems to kind of wane a little bit. So being mindful of how many, even if you have to set out those 8 glasses in the morning when you start the day, well, that's a good reminder that did I have enough and adequate fluids throughout the day? And then that's for every age, so.
I love that you gave a number, because I have an elderly mom, and I think their sense of thirst declines with age. So they don't always know how much they should drink until they haven't drank enough. And just knowing you need those 8 glasses and putting some kind of a sweetener or some kind of flavor, I should say, in it, even like an herbal tea that helps them to drink, because it is hard to get them to drink that much water.
I love just adding, a squeeze of lemon.
Absolutely.
Just
A
does
little
something-
extra vitamin C there, too.
Yeah, and then my vitamin C, a double dose. What about energy level? For many of us, when we get older, can the foods we eat help us with our energy level?
Well, that is a great question. And of course, when you think about what nutrition is the food that gives our body the energy. It produces the energy in the cell. And so absolutely those colorful foods can help with that. However, let me just remind you, and you mentioned as we age, that sometimes our appetite wanes, just as with consuming beverages. And remember that the B complex is very important in helping to foster a normal appetite. So if, for example, Tammy, you mentioned your mother, if your mother decides, oh, I'm just not hungry, I haven't eaten anything today, I don't really feel hungry at all, then it might be a good time for you to suggest to your mom that, Mom, maybe you need a B complex because it does help with a healthy appetite production. And then also just knowing that if you can make sure that you have those colorful foods like the fruits and the vegetables, they're very easily digested. They're not high in fat. Many of them have some source of protein as well. And they have the energy food, which is the carbohydrate and the more complex carbohydrates. So
I know because, sugar is a big no-no nowadays, really, and too much of it, certainly. And when we were growing up on the farm, Mom didn't let us have refined sugar. So if we wanted something sweet, it had to be a piece of fruit. And even to this day, if I feel like my energy's kind of waning, then I'll have an orange or an apple. I don't know. And some of it could be psychological, but when I eat an apple, I feel like, okay, I've got another wind under my sails again, so I can keep going. And I do think fruit, and basically you're getting that little punch of energy, and it's just making a difference. At least it does for me.
Absolutely. That's a great suggestion, Julie. And it is important to focus on those nutrients that are going to provide you with that extra energy and some of the simple carbohydrates instead of just the refined sugars. However, let's admit, every once in a while, you just might want a chocolate-covered almond because it just not only tastes good, but it also can do that. And occasionally, it's not that you can never have any of those sugar-laden foods. You just don't want many of them, and they become more of a treat versus an everyday occasion.
Right. Yeah.
And speaking of the foods you don't want tons of, any advice to some of our listeners on when you go out to dinner with a group and maybe don't have quite as much control over your choices? Any tips on eating out?
Well, I did start with watching your portion sizes right off and making sure that you, when you look at your plate or you order your food, that it has some color added to it. But let me just go to the point of, you may not be in control of how it's prepared, but you are in control of what you choose off the menu and what you choose to consume from your plate. And so it really gets back to those basics again, Tammy. If you have a plate of steak, then my suggestion is order double vegetables so that you make sure you have enough color, or share a plate. I mean, everybody doesn't like to do that, but very honestly, there's no reason why you couldn't and add an extra serving of vegetables. And when it comes to dessert, it doesn't mean you can't have dessert. However, many of our restaurants, I can think of a few here in Arizona, that when they serve the dessert, it's huge. And to think that you need all of that just to satisfy a little bit of that sweet tooth after dinner, that's really where I would suggest that you share, or make sure that when you order that large piece of carrot cake that you ask for a box so you can take it home and enjoy it maybe over the next 2, 3, or 4 days.
Great idea, and you're right. I know when I think of a few restaurants in particular, the plates are huge and the portions are huge. And I had pulled out my mother-in-law's china and used it for a dinner not long ago, and they look like salad plates. The plates were so little.
Well, weren't you the one that said that a lot of our plate sizes have increased, or maybe it was one of the nutritionists but I think it was you, that our plate sizes at restaurants have actually increased.
And we get so used to that, and you put a reasonably sized piece of food on a large plate and it looks way too small.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's really, as you said, portion control, eating out and eating in. But, all of this has accustomed us to seeing foods bigger than they actually should be in portion size.
And one thing that you're talking about, because I've caught myself, I don't do it as much anymore because I try to be a little bit more focused about eating and stuff. But if you forgot to eat lunch because it got so busy, and then by the time you do sit down to eat, you're just ravenous, and you go beyond that portion size that's you counsel. So is there, since we're talking about meals and plate size and all that fun stuff, is there anything about timing when it comes to eating?
Well, it's interesting that this is one of the questions because I'm going to answer you this way. It would be great if every school child went from 8 to 3, or every working individual adult worked from 8 to 5. But in reality, that is not our job time anymore. So for me to say, absolutely, you need breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's not the reality for many people
Really, it
anymore.
is not.
I think what's important, again, is the choices that are made when that mealtime comes for you as an individual. There is a caution that, for the most part, if you've had your breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or those 3 snacks in between, whatever time that might work with your working schedule or school schedule, is keeping mindful of the fact that usually it's that late night hour that the chips come out of the pantry, or the
popcorn.
And popcorn. That's a good choice, Julie.
Yeah, that is a good choice.
But you know what I mean is that it's when we get a little bit more numb in our choices, and it's just being mindful of the opportunity for us to choose healthy choices also at that late hour, regardless if it's late at night or late in your day schedule based on whatever your normal routine is. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and any tips on fiber, getting more fiber in our diets?
I hate to keep going back to my same thing over and over again, but I think if I say it 5 times,
for it to sink in, it's okay.
just remember when you eat your fruits and vegetables, they have, as long as you keep the skin on, there is tremendous amount of fiber in the fruits and vegetables that we consume. Now, I do know, though, that in reality, many individuals may not always like to choose that, and there are great options, whether it is a healthy, hot breakfast cereal in the morning that has more fiber, being very careful to choose. That's a good way to get more fiber in your diet. And even still, they have supplements that would make sure that you have adequate fiber. But my suggestion is eat the fruit, eat the vegetable, and eat it with the skin on, because that is where the majority of the fiber is going to be in those particular products. And then making sure that with increased fiber, you must have more water. So I said 8 glasses or 64 ounces in a day, but if you're a big fiber person, then can I recommend that you add 2 more glasses, because fiber works its best when you have adequate fluid intake as well. So
I love the food first approach, yes.
So what is one simple change, maybe even small, but that can make a big difference if somebody's going to try to tell themselves, I'm going to get better, I'm listening to Glenna.
Okay, great. This is one hint that could be helpful for any individual, and that is when you go to consume your meal or your snack, eat your vegetables first.
Oh.
Most of us go, let me have that chicken breast or steak or even the fish that might be on our plate. But start with your vegetables. And the reason is there's many different benefits to that. If you think about how sand can kind of keep the floodwaters back, what you consume in the fiber and the nutritional value of those vegetables almost acts similar to sand in that it slows down the other food products that you would consume afterwards. And so really it helps to keep your glucose more level, and it also can help you with satiety so you don't over-consume or overeat. So I'm going to promote vegetables and fruits more and more. Those 5, look at your hand, make sure you're consuming colorful foods, springtime foods every single day. But when you look at your plate, instead of when they put the plate down in front of you in the restaurant, they usually put the protein right in front of you. Well, take it, turn your plate around, start with your vegetable. And that would be one major change that would help you in many, many ways, both for satiety, but also for the nutritional benefits as well.
So those times when I skip the meal and I'm ravenous, if I start with my vegetables, it's going to set me up better, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. And it will help you feel fuller faster in many ways because of the fact that it takes time to chew the vegetables that have that fibrous material in as well. And so it will help slow things down, not only in the amount of food that you consume, but also the way that the digestive system works.
That's a good tip.
And I didn't really think about it, but you're right. They do usually set the plate down so the protein is right there in front, and the vegetables are on the out. They're the outliers.
They're the outliers, right? And they usually get left for last.
Yes.
So I just say, turn it around, start with your vegetables first.
And then go from there.
And, you know, that kind of leads into another question I had. I know you're a mom and you have grandkids. Any tips for our listeners on getting your kids to start eating
More
healthy,
vegetables.
or eating more vegetables, or having a balanced diet?
Well, I think we have learned a lot from our schools. Many of our schools have school gardens now, and the reason why is because, one, they want our children to understand where does food come from, but more importantly is if our children are involved in either growing or preparing the food, they are so much more likely to consume it. And if they've never had it, at least to taste it. And so the trick, I'm not sure I know the trick, but what I do understand is that our children are very curious. And if they know that they play a very important part in the family food function, including helping to prepare the snacks or maybe preparing dinner, and they are part of it, they're much more likely to consume those healthier food choices because it makes them very proud to be able to help and to glean some of those experiences. And not only that, is they'll be the next generation to know how to cook, which right now we have some vacancies there in some of our generations. So it will help in the long run as well as the short run.
Can you imagine a young child for the first time growing their own tomato plant and then picking that first tomato? They're going to want to try it.
Absolutely.
Studies have, to your point, studies have proven that if a child gets to grow some vegetables, they're part of a school garden, or their parents are inspired enough to do backyard gardens, then the same thing will happen.
Well, and we have few individuals now, less than 2%, involved in agriculture. So that's even giving them a touch of what's involved with agriculture by doing that.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
Great idea.
My little grandsons and my granddaughters, one of their favorite things to do in my backyard is to take the basket out and go pick the lemons and the grapefruits and the oranges. And they think that, oh my goodness, this is such a treat and a treasure. Gigi, can I go and pick the lemons off your tree? Absolutely. And then what do? We make some things out of those lemons once they bring them in. So, you know, it's a learning experience, but it is one of those life skills that every child hopefully can learn from, grow from, and then make some healthy choices from.
And Gigi, they'll remember that for the rest of their life. I take it that's what they call you.
I hope they do call me Gigi.
I love it. This has been so fun. We'll have to have you back. Thank you so much for your insights. That's why I always like talking to you, Glenna. It's because it's simple, it's straightforward. It's things that we can apply to our life, even if we decide we want to just play with some of the basics and make sure that the other thing from your tips and advice, it's daily practical application without it being overwhelming. And that's what I really appreciate.
Thank you, Julie. And it really does not need to be complicated. I think that it's difficult because we have so much information out there, and it's hard sometimes for the consumer to know, well, what's really true or what's really the best thing for me. And I just want to remind all of us that it's as simple as taking your hand with you and looking at your plate and counting the colors and looking at your portion, sizes that come or that you prepare or go to the restaurant and consume. We can make healthy choices every single day, and it's very easy to if we're just mindful of it.
Any last thoughts, nutrition ninja?
No, I just was thinking now there's no excuse not to eat healthy because you can't lose your hand. And and that's all you really need. So great practical advice. So thanks,
Thank you.
Glenna.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.